Two quantities can consist of two opposite things, like boys to girls, apples to oranges, cars to teenagers, things like that. A unit rate represents an amount for one. So with a unit rate, we have 1 as a denominator. So write 1 as a denominator. So if I say what's the unit rate of something, what I'm really asking is how much for 1? Or how far for 1? Everybody should be writing this down. Ways to write ratios. We learned about this yesterday a little bit. You can write ratios as a fraction. That would be like 3 to 4. You can write it as a semicolon, like 3 is to 4. Or you can write it with the word 2, 3 to 4. Those are 3 different ways, and you need to be able to be confident that if I were to give you any of these 3 ways, you would know what to do and know that they represent a ratio. All right. Next page, we're just going to do some examples. If it goes. Waiting for this recorder. Okay, here we go. All right, I want to do some examples, some ratio examples in a class. Let's say there are 15 girls and 17 boys. I want to find the ratio of the following. So you should be writing this example down in your Cornell notes. And these are two very possible examples that your book will want to see from you to be able to distinguish. If I have a ratio of girls to boys, that means I'm going to have the amount of girls to the amount of boys. And I want it represented in 3 ways. So, how many girls do I have, class?
15.
15. 15 girls to how many boys?
17.
To 17 boys. So that's one way to write it. What's another way to write it, class? As a fraction. So what goes on top if I write 15. It as a fraction?
15.
Or, yep, so or I have 15 is to 17. What's another way to write it?
The semicolon.
Okay, semicolon. What's the first number on the semicolon?
15.
As I say, this is always going to be first. The first object is always going to be first, and the second one will always be the last. First would also mean top or bottom. 15 is to 17. All right, boys to total. Who's got that? Anybody? All right, how many boys do I have? I have 17 boys. So I say 17 to, how many total kids do I have? Yeah, total means boys and girls. So I would go 15 plus 17, which is 32. So I have 17 to 32. Can I simplify that?
No.
No, I can't. What's another way to write a class?
17 over 32.
17 over 32.
And then it's called a semicolon.
17 semicolon 32. Those are other ways to write it. Very good. All right, simplifying ratios. I want everybody to write this down. With simplifying ratios, we want to simplify the same as simplifying fractions. we divide through by the common factor. And if it's improper, you leave it that way. Very important. So it's the same strategy as simplifying fractions. We divide through by any common factor that there is, and we leave improper. That means that if it was 3 over 2, you would leave it as 3 over 2. Okay? You would not write that as 1 1/2. All right, we're going to do a couple examples with cupcakes and candy. Seems to be fitting today. All right, let's do the ratio. What do you think? Show me the ratio of cupcakes to candy right now.
2 to 1.
I heard it.
2 to 1.
Okay, 2 to 1. What about candy to cupcakes?
1 to 2.
1 to 2. No simplifying needed, right?
Nope.
Okay, now I'm just gonna play games here. I'm gonna, I gotta undo that. I wanna minimize this size a little bit.
Play games.
Ready?
Cool.
I'm just going to do a couple examples.
Cool.
Okay.
Let's see.
Come on. All right, what do I got now? What's my ratio of cupcakes to candy right now?
Cupcakes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 to 5.
8 to 5. What's my ratio of candy to
5 to
cupcakes?
8.
5 to 8. And how do you know what goes first, class?
Whatever you say first.
Whatever you
Whatever
say
sounds
first is what goes first. Yep. Okay. Ready? The next concept that we are going to talk about in 6.1 is unit rate. This is by far one of the most difficult concepts for 7th graders to master. When you think about unit rate, what you're really asking, unit means 1, if you can recall. If you're looking at a grid, unit means 1. So a unit rate means find the amount for 1. So again, unit means 1. Or I said 1 unit, just singular. So we can find the amount for 1 utilizing equivalent fractions. I don't want to say utilize equivalent, well, why not? Utilize equivalent fractions. So what I mean by utilizing equivalent fractions, I mean making a 1 on the denominator, okay? So for this example, we rode our bike 16 miles in 2 hours. Now, if I'm going to say I rode my bike 16 miles in 2 hours, so what I'm doing is miles per hour. I want to know how far did I ride my bike in 1 mile? And everybody should be writing this down. So before you tell me, I want you to just notice what I did. It's just like when we make equivalent fractions. What did I do to 2 to get to 1? I did. I divided by 2. So what do I need to do to the 16? I have to do the same thing. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So what this means is that I rode 8 miles in 1 hour. Again, with the 1 as my denominator. especially this summer, I highly suggest boys and girls that you try it. You offer to mow lawns or offer to de-weed people's yards or pick up dog poop in people's yards.
Oh,
Little
no.
things like that. I know, sounds gross. Adults hate doing it too. I would be happy to pay somebody to do that. So you go market yourself out in the neighborhood and make some money, okay? For mowing 6 lawns, you get $34.50. I want to know my unit rate. Unit means one. How much did I get for each lawn that I mowed? Okay? So I know that, and usually I always do this. I always put money. Anytime I'm dealing with money, I put money on the top. So I do money per lawn. Money over lawn. So I get $34.50.
Wait,
$34.50 for 6 lawns. This is Auntie Mahold. Alright, so if I get $34.50 for 6 lawns, then my goal is how much am I getting for 1 lawn? Making an equivalent fraction. So what did I do to the 6 to get to the 1 class? I divided through by that 6. Well, if I divide through the bottom by 6, I need to divide through by the top by 6. Yes, Alex?
How do you know which one to put on top? Like, how come you didn't put the lawn on the top?
Because when you think about dollars, it doesn't really matter. But when you think about dollars, you're thinking, how much did I make for each one? And so you always want $1 on top. That's just kind of the little side trick. You always want to have $1 on top. And just think about rates. Like, what about miles per hour? If you want to know how fast you're going, you're going to want your miles first and your time second, right? Or if you think about words per minute, like you type 300 words in 2 hours, how many words did you type per hour? You know, so you do the words on top. So you just always think about it as a rate. This is definitely a chapter I will allow calculator usage on. So I will not make you have to do this by hand. So I'm just punching into my calculator. 34.50 divided by 6 is 5.75. Holy moly, that is cheap. So what does that mean, class? What does that 5.75 tell me? Go ahead.
That's how much money you get for 1 lawn.
Yeah, so this represents how much money I get for 1 lawn. So what this means is I get $5.75 per lawn. Now, some of you might have some family members that you know that are like do medical transcriptionists or something like that, maybe work at home. Well, they usually get paid per page or per word that they type, okay? So let's just say that I get $105 for typing. I get $105 for typing 10 pages. How much do I get for typing 1 page? And I want you to do that on your whiteboard. All right, I'm going to finish this one up, okay? So if a typist earns $105 for typing 10 pages, what my goal is I want to know how much money does the typist earn for 1 page. So I'm looking at money per page, dollars per page. So when she gets $105 for 10 pages, and I want to see what does that equal for 1. So what did I do to the 10 to get to the 1 class? Divide by 10. So I'm just going to divide the top by 10, and I get 10.50. So what does this mean, class? Per page, right? So this teacher makes $10.50 per page. All right. The quick way for finding unit rate. This is, some of you have already made this connection. And if you have, that's awesome. This is for those of us that understand what we're trying to do is get a 1 on the denominator. Some of you have already noticed, hey, I'm just doing top divided by bottom. I'm doing whatever number is on top and dividing it by that bottom number. Okay? So I want you to write this in your notes. Your quick way for finding unit rate, you go top divided by bottom in my calculator. I don't always have to make equivalent fractions, but I can. Okay? Whatever works best for you in your learning. So if I have $45 for 6 shirts, and I want to know how much for 1 shirt, well, now I can use this new strategy, 45 or top divided by bottom. I'm looking at, first I have to understand, what am I really asking myself here? I'm asking how much money per shirt. So we're looking at dollars. We're waiting for the smart board. We're looking at dollars per shirt. Okay, how much per shirt? So my trick here now is I can go 45 and just go divided by 6 right away. That'll tell me how much for 1, and it all stems for that equivalent fraction. So 45 divided by 6 is 750. And again, understanding what does that mean? It means I pay $7.50 for 1 shirt. Pretty cheap. Not a bad price. Okay, let's use that same strategy for 520 miles in 7 hours. So it looks here like I want to know how much miles in an hour. Miles per hour is what I'm looking for. So then I have 520 divided by 7, which equals 74.285, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just going to say 74.3. I'm rounding to the nearest 10. If they don't ever specify, the best thing I can recommend is rounding to the nearest 10. So what does this mean then, class? What does this mean? 74.3. Yeah, miles per hour. So it's 74.3 miles per hour. And we represent miles/hour. Our last concept that we're going to talk about in 6.1 deals with better buys, identifying better buys. So the strategy, everybody should be writing this in their notes. The strategy for better buys is to find each unit price and compare. So we're going to find each unit price and we're going to compare. So whatever's cheaper for 1 will be the better buy. Now some of you, your families might go to Costco or Sam's Club and you think that you're getting an awesome deal because what they're doing is comparing unit rates. It's not always that case though. Sometimes it's just as cheap to buy in little than it is to buy in bulk. So I want to do this example with you. If I am comparing what my better buy is here, if I have a 25-pound crate of oranges for 16, I need to identify that I am comparing pounds and dollar. So what I want to know, anytime I have dollar, my goal is how much money per pound. Money over pounds. So I want to know how much did I pay for 1 pound. So here I'm going to go 16 divided by 25. Now if you're confused, how did I know that? Because I want to do dollars over pounds. And I am creating that equivalent fraction. I have 16 is to 25 as what would be to 1. I want to know how much for 1 then. And I said to myself, how did I get from 25 to 1? I divided through.
Always, so 1 always wants to be the denominator.
For unit rates, always, always, always.
Oh.
And then I divide through here by 25. And I go 16 divided by 25 is 64 cents. So it's 0.64. So what this means on A, I say this was 64 cents per pound. Okay? All right, now we get 13.50. The second one is 13.50 for 20 pounds. Again, I want to know how much for 1 pound then. So I'm going to go dollars, again, over pounds. And I'm going to use my quick strategy. So I'm just going to go whatever my dollar is divided by my pounds.
I'm so confused.
So it's 13.50 divided by 20. So 13.5 divided by 20 is 68 cents, 60.675, but money is only rounded to 2 spots. So this is 0.68 per pound. Now, some of you thought, oh, clearly the 13.50, is the better buy, okay? But the 13.50 did not turn out to be the better buy. Because when we found each unit rate, what is cheaper? 64 cents a pound or 68 cents a pound? Which one is cheaper?
So 64.
64 inches per pound. So 25 pounds is the better buy.
Yeah, you said inches per pound.
Oh, dollar per pound. So we went through enough examples. I think that you can reference as your notes as needed. We are going to just get our homework.